He's been named one of Fortune magazine's 50 world's greatest leaders, USA Today Person of the Year, Ebony magazine's 100 most powerful people, Vanity Fair's Next Establishment, Fortune magazine's 40 under 40, Ad Age Creative 50, The Hollywood Reporter's Digital Power 50, and Black Enterprise's 40 Next. And that's just to name a few. He's also the founder and board chairman of Code 2040, which matches high-performing Black and Latino undergraduate and graduate coders and software engineers, students with Silicon Valley's startups for internships. He's also the founder and CEO of Walker and Company brands, which includes the brands Bevel and Form, which are designed to meet the health and beauty needs of people of color. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Tristan Walker to the show. That was a lot, Tristan.
I'm trying, man.
They're trying, you're doing.
I'm trying.
And listen, Tristan, with Zeppelin, our producer, he's joining us for this interview today. When he told me that you were in town and said, you know, do you want to speak with him? I said, can I speak with him? Like, he seems like he's moving and shaking, but you managed to give us a little time.
Of course. No, thank you for the time.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So, Tristan, let me ask you first and foremost, where are you from?
I'm from Queens, New York, born and raised.
Queens, New York. Okay, because I noticed you went to school up there, too.
Yeah. So I went to, up until high school, I was in Queens. Then I went to boarding school for high school in Connecticut. Came back, went to school in Long Island, and then I moved out to the West Coast to go to business school.
Got it. Stanford.
Stanford Business School, yeah.
What was that like going to
It was crazy.
Stanford?
It was, I was there for 2 years. I started in 2008. And I like to say it was just like my boarding school experience. I got to see how the other half lived. Right? When I was in boarding school, I went to school with like Rockefellers and Fords and all that stuff. Right?
Yeah.
And I got to learn like what it meant to mean something. Right? To mean like what your name meant, what your last name meant, and how it meant to like carry that legacy throughout. And Stanford was much of the same.
Yeah.
We were just older, right?
Okay.
And I got to learn, you know, fortunately, in addition to that, like what Silicon Valley meant. It completely changed my life forever after that.
So were you introduced to Silicon Valley at Stanford, or did you know about it prior to in the boarding school?
I had no idea Silicon Valley existed until I was 24 when I got out to Stanford.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a big problem. I worked on Wall Street for a little bit. You know, I'm a New England baby, right? So it was either sports or Wall Street.
Okay.
And I had no idea about technology. I thought it was a place where semiconductors got made.
Right.
And I only moved out to the Bay Area to go to Stanford because I want to get as far away from the East Coast as possible. I just needed a break. I knew Stanford was known for entrepreneurship.
Okay.
And I was interested in it, but I didn't know what that meant until I got there. I was 24. It took too long.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then so you get out to Stanford. I'm sure the weather was far better.
It was okay. It was good.
So
I'll take it.
Who did you connect with out there that introduced you to Silicon Valley, and what did you see? Like, what was kind of some of the things that came to your mind? Because like you said, you clearly had a different understanding of technology prior to.
Of course, yeah. So when I got it, I was 24, and I saw the 24-year-olds not only making millions of dollars, but fundamentally changing the world, right? I was like, man, like I could do this. I could figure it out. You know, I could hustle. I could, you know, there's no reason why I shouldn't be able to participate in this. My first year in business school, I joined the small company at the time called Twitter.
Okay.
There was like 20 people at the company.
Wow.
Really?
Like nobody, man. Like I remember talking to my classmates, I got this internship at Twitter. And they were like, what is that? Like people just talk about what they're eating every day.
Yeah.
And I was like, just you
that's
wait.
right. Because you said this is 08.
It's 2008.
08,
They didn't even have 1 million users yet.
I think that's when I joined. I think my joinership is like 08, 09. I'm like an OG at Twitter, man.
Super early. And, you know, I got there when there was 20 people. So I was like, wow, there's something really special going on here. They're changing communication. And then in between my first and second year of business school, I joined a small company called Foursquare as its first employee. They were doing some interesting things with like local business, that sort of thing, changing my lifestyle. And I was like, I want to participate in this. So I've been like very blessed and fortunate to be a part of like these very early type of companies before people realized what they were, carry some authenticity with it, and the rest is kind of history.
What do you think you learned from those internships and from working in such small groups where you get to work so much closer with the CEOs and the CFOs than you would with like a bigger Fortune 500
I think
company?
there's a couple things. First, you know, when I was growing up, you know, I joked a little earlier, I want to be an athlete, I want to work on Wall Street. I was like, all right, like I'm gonna get rich, right? I went to school with all these Rockefellers, Fords, as I mentioned. But it wasn't until I got to Silicon Valley and I understand what wealth really was. Right? Like now you're talking like billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars, and your ability to attract that at an early age It's unlike any other region on the planet. So the first thing I learned was it's possible, right, to do it at an earlier age. I'm not quite there yet, but like it is possible. And then the thing that I learned about kind of the small companies is you could move as quickly as anybody, right? Like at some point, like Facebook was in a college dormitory, right? The founders of Airbnb couldn't afford their rent at one point, right? So there's like a humbling beginning story that can change.
Really
and
fast.
to do that really, really fast. And it's getting faster and faster and faster now. So the thing I learned is like there's power in not only the small teams to be agile, but it's possible, right? And it's possible at a scale that I didn't even think was possible. Those Rockefellers took like decades, right? Like the Fords took decades. These kids are taking 18 months. That's not a joke.
Wow.
I mean, it's real.
So I can imagine in all of these environments, you're probably one of the few that look like you.
That's right.
Can we speak to that as well, like what that experience was like, not being a part of the majority?
It's that's been a part of my life since I was 13 years old, right?
Okay.
So from the time I went to boarding school, I got a full ride at one of the top boarding schools in the country. Wasn't much of us. I mean, a school of about 500, probably 10, 15 of us. Then, I go work on Wall Street. I was a trader on Wall Street. There weren't that many of us either. Then I get out to Stanford, and certainly in my class, there aren't that many, but like in Silicon Valley, they're close to none. I had the good fortune, again, being so early at these companies that nobody else wanted to participate in. So I had the opportunity. I wasn't chasing the same thing that everybody else was.
Okay.
And I did good work. And I was able to make a name for myself before even Silicon Valley got popular, right? So by the time 2008, 2009, 2010 were coming around, I was on stages giving speeches. Foursquare's in New York. I was in the Bay Area. It was my second year of business school. And I remember Dennis, the founder, he would get invited to speak at tech conferences in Silicon Valley all the time, but he didn't want to fly out all the time. So he was like, we already got somebody out there. So I was like, all right, bet. And the power of people seeing this face, seeing what I look like, and my like stepping out, like on face to be like, all right, I know what I'm talking about. I'm an expert in what we do. You're not an expert in what we do because we're the first person doing it, or first people doing it. And we did good work, made people recognize that like this is possible. And after 2009, 2010, we started to see more people, and I was dedicated. Like once I realized my experience, I didn't want that same story to happen. It was, by the time I was 24, it's too late, right? Like I should have known about this place when I was 12, 13, 14. Right, even 18, 19. So now, like, I've dedicated my whole life to not only the economic empowerment of like us and our kind of having a seat at the table, but especially out in Silicon Valley where all this wealth creation is happening.
Do you notice a change in the diversity now? It seems like there's
no. Okay. I mean, I've been working on this not only for profit, not for profit, for the greater part of 7-8 years right now. And I mean, publicly, right? Like a lot of people recognize who I am in Silicon Valley. I've been doing the good work. Now, we've been doing good work and continue to do good work, but the numbers at these companies aren't changing, right? The same percentage of Black, Latino kind of engineers they had 8 years ago is either the same or worse, right? The wealth gap is widening. We're not participating in it. But people like Code 2040, me, like we're doing our work to let people know. But the other thing that I think people are starting to realize is that Silicon Valley isn't the end-all be-all. Tech is everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're starting to see it spread in different hubs. Everywhere. Austin, Atlanta.
Exactly. I mean, it's a big reason why we move. Like, I lived down in Silicon Valley for 10 years. And we sold our company. First thing I did was let's move to Atlanta and really tell people that, like, because tech is everywhere, I care more about following the culture. Because tech is just going to layer on top of that and then create even more opportunities. So let's go to where the people are so I can help educate and learn about this sort of thing.
Yeah, what do you attribute it to, though? Why do you think we're not, with that advancement isn't there? Is it something more on our end that we need? Are we not educated enough? Are we not skilled enough? Or
I think it's a couple things. I have a couple of beliefs. First, I always like to say all global culture is led by American culture, which is led by Black culture in the U.S., right? So the thing is, we're early adopters, period, right? We're the earliest adopters of Twitter, even Foursquare in a lot of ways. Like, we are always participating and using things in ways that even these companies didn't imagine. And then they adapt the technologies to fit our needs, right? They don't talk about it, but they adapt the technology. That's one thing. So the thing that's interesting about it is we're the greatest consumer demographic in the planet, but we don't know that people produce these things.
Right.
I read some book that really changed my life and got me to think about Code 2040. And this theme is written by MIT professors called Race Against the Machine.
Okay.
And the whole kind of theme or thesis was gap between the rich and the poor is the starkest it's ever been. There is no middle class. I believe that to be true. The reason you have this 1%, 99% thing is because people at the top, the 1%, using technology in ways to make them more productive. So they don't need employees, they don't need all that stuff. While the folks at the bottom, 99% are not, right? Yeah. So they're missing out on this kind of wealth creation opportunity because tech is accelerating fast. So the thing we just need to wake up and realize is that people are producing these things to make them more productive. And we need to participate in it. And I think we're learning it, right? Because I think we're understanding our power and contribution to technology. And there are a hell of a lot of engineers who look like us. Yeah. They just aren't exposed. But I think now that like our culture is getting so respected as it should, and technology is where it is, and you have smart people in the community, like it's coming together.
Okay.
And I think we're, we called our not-for-profit Code 2040 for a reason. This isn't going to take 18 months. It's going to take decades, right? But you just got to be patient with it and keep marching.
Yeah, we got Tristan Walker here, founder of Walker and Company, the creator of Bevel, creator of Form. I want to talk to a little bit how we got to that space too. So you're in Silicon Valley, you're growing, you've got with Twitter, Foursquare. What then got you into this place of creating Walker and Company?
Yeah. So in between Foursquare and Walker and Company, I joined this venture capital firm called Tristan as an entrepreneur in residence. Yeah, they said, spend 6 to 9 months with us, figure out what you want to do. We'll pay you to do it. And I was like, oh, okay.
They paid you to figure out what you want to do?
Yeah, I spent all 9 months trying to figure that out, too. And the funny thing is, and I appreciate them for this, I needed that time in that space. After Twitter and Foursquare, I was like, what's the most ambitious thing that I could build, right? Like, I wanted to do something in trucking. I wanted to do something to fix childhood obesity. And then Ben Horowitz up in Tristan Horowitz would teach me, he's like, Tristan, what's the one thing you're uniquely qualified to do that nobody on earth could do as well? And I was like, I don't know anything about trucking, right? Like, I care about the childhood obesity thing, but I'm not the expert. Somebody who knows better than I is going to come in and eat my lunch on those things. So I remember the way Walker & Company started was out of my own frustration. In January of 2013, I remember I was shaving. And I was using this thing called Magic Shave. It was a depilatory cream, right? So these things you put on your face, you let it sit for 6 to 8 minutes. You don't need a razor. You just wipe it off.
Oh, it's like Nair.
Yeah.
But women use it Nair.
So it stinks up your bathroom, damages your skin, that whole thing,
it's
right?
A Nair.
I'm like, I've been using this for 15 years. I can't use a multi-blade razor on my face. Electric trimmers are dirty and nasty. So like, why is this? This is crazy to me. My wife, she was frustrated. She was like, I can't smell this thing anymore. And I remember walking to a store. And it was an art of shaving store. And I asked the sales rep, I was like, man, I can't shave because you got to deal with this razor bump thing. Like, what am I going to do? Now, the art of shaving has all these razors. They're owned by Procter & Gamble, right, which is now our kind of partner company. And all they could have done was say, all right, get this like multi-blade razor. It costs $100, right, take it home. But they never did that, right? They had all the incentive to do it. They always, and every time I go to Art of Shaving, I do this, they always take me to an off-brand, right, what's called single blade double-edged safety razor. Now, this is where the industry started. It's a tool that cuts the hair level with the skin. You don't have to worry about razor bumps or anything like that. But no one uses it anymore because there's really no more IP protection and that sort of thing. So they can't maintain their margin. It's like a big profit motive. So I was like, this is interesting. I used it, didn't get razor bumps the next day. And this is crazy to me, is for 15 years I've been dealing with this issue. I was like, nobody's taught me this, right? And nobody's incentivized to do it. And that was a spark of what we created. Now we have 2 different brands, 36 different products. And I said, wow, here's a wide open opportunity to do thing for an audience that's been underserved.
Yeah.
I'm tired of walking into retail shops, going to ethnic beauty aisle, which is always next to the beauty aisle, which never made sense to me. Packaging that's dirty. There's always a photo of like a 60-year-old bald black dude in a towel drinking a cognac on the packaging. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And I was like, for the amount of cultural influence we have, the amount of money we spend on this stuff, right? We're going to be the majority of the country in 20 years. If you include kind of all people of color, we're the majority of the world right now.
Yeah.
Right? Like, why is nobody building this? And there have been companies that have been doing this for 150 years. And I was like, I'm going to build that company.
Before you kind of go on to how you built the company, can you talk about how you got to Andreessen and Horowitz? Because they're a huge venture capitalist, one of the most influential. And to be able to be in a space where they're essentially asking you to build a company, like, how did that play come together? Especially as a black man.
I've had the blessing of very good timing. So Andreessen Horowitz, I forget the exact year they started, but it was probably sometime around like 2009, 2010. That's when I was graduating Stanford, and I joined Foursquare, and Andreessen Horowitz was one of the largest investors in Foursquare. And at the time, I was doing pretty well at Foursquare, and I told the founder, I was 3 years in, I'm ready to go, just figure something out. The next day, Ben Horowitz, who was on the board, was like, come spend time with me in my house. I went to his house in Menlo Park. Sat down with him. I was like, listen, like, I'm getting these potential opportunities to be an entrepreneur in residence at all these other venture capital firms. And he's like, Tristan, like, you know me, I know you. If you're going to build this company, come do it with us. Like, I will help kind of give you the infrastructure you need to do it. Now, again, like, I've been very fortunate with the timing, because if Andreessen Horowitz weren't around, I probably would have done it with another venture capital firm. I probably would have done one of those ideas that I didn't think was great. But Ben knew me well. He knew what I was uniquely positioned to do. And the thing that was like really crazy about it was, I would go down Sand Hill Road where all the venture capital firms are and tell them about the trucking, the obesity stuff. And they're like, do it.
Yeah.
And Ben would always tell me, he's like, Tristan, usually what looks like good ideas are bad ideas. And usually what looks like bad ideas are good ideas. Because most of the people will chase the good ideas and there's no value to be created because they're all doing the same stuff. Yeah. It wasn't until I came up with this idea for Walker & Company that I would go down Sand Hill Road and everybody's like, I don't know. And Ben was like, that was the idea. And at that point, I was like, that's when I knew I was uniquely qualified to do it. It's like, all right, who authentically has this problem? Who looks like me can actually raise the money to solve this problem, right? And who has the infrastructure to do it? And I couldn't think of anybody else in the world who had that. Yeah. Right, and that was like the most freeing moment of my life, and probably the best lesson that I learned. And fast forward 7 years later, we still have no competition.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, that's true. How'd you come up with the name Bevel? Where did that come from?
About to catch me now. So, you want like the marketing story or the real story?
I need the. Now this is I need the real. Not what you done told all these other people.
Yeah,
give me the tea.
So here's what's funny. You're probably the first person who's ever gonna know this. All right, so I was thinking about naming the company. At the time, we had kind of raised money and all that. So I was like, man, you got to get the right name for it, right? So first of all, Walker & Company, because I wanted to build like the legacy 150-year business and something that like my sons and grandsons can actually kind of look to and be inspired by. But for Bevel, I was like, all right, I got some advice to do one of two things. Either name it after the names of like lakes, right? Because lakes always have these kind of crazy names. Okay. But I was like, I can't name my razor company like Wenonskopomic, right? That's not going to hit hard. And then they were like obscure last names. And I remember kind of going into Google, I literally typed like obscure last names. And the first link that popped up was A through Z, just lists of crazy last names. I started at Z actually. Okay. And I spent about like 45 minutes just going down the list. And I get to B. And I get to Bevel. I'm like, Bevel. Like, it sounds good. Like, what is this? Like, what is the actual definition of it? Like, I've heard the word, but like, what is it? And I look it up. And it's where two lines intersect at an angle that's not 90 degrees. And what's interesting about it was we were telling people to shave at a 30-degree angle. That's the recommendation that we have. You think about the blade that we have. It has an angle that's not 90 degrees. And I was like, wow, what a perfect name for what we're trying to do. This goes back to like this blessing of time and just purpose and it just worked out that way. I would have never come. And I started at Z and worked my way all the way back.
You were almost at A.
It was
so
crazy.
You were pretty much at the end.
It was crazy. Yeah. I was running out of time.
Right.
Yeah.
And then here comes Bevel.
Yeah, Nas can't rap. He probably could rap with Nas Capomic, but we'll see.
Right. I was going to say, I mean, Nas made Bevel. That's the first time I had heard of it. I mean, obviously, I don't shave, so I didn't know about it until Nas.
Yeah.
And when he and that whole rhyme about the bevel blade was incredible. And then he had the video where he's getting the cut. You know, Nas stays with a fresh one.
That's right.
So I'm like, wow, this is a hell of a blade.
Nas
and the next
was the first investor we ever had.
Really?
Yeah. I had an hour with him at Tristan Walker, actually.
Yeah.
And
was he just like up there? Was he casually up there? Or was this like put together?
So it was interesting. So Steve Stout, who is close to Nas, I met with him a bunch of years back. Helped connect him to Ben Horowitz because he wanted to kind of learn more about the space. They became kind of great friends. And then through that, Nas, Ben, Steve, all that stuff. So Nas rolled by. Ben literally came to my office. He's like, yo, Nas is here. You want to stop by? I was like, oh, right? Like, kid from Queens, like, had Half Moon part in my hair. Nas rolls in with like the Mets hat, Mets fitted. Sitting down, I'm nervous, right? So I pitch him. 5 minutes, he's like, I'm good, I'm in. Like, what do you need?
Wow.
And I was like, man, this is perfect, right? Not only just the Cold Queens connection and the amount of respect I had, but he's the haircut dude.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so you think about like authenticity. I mean, the whole way, for the first 2 years we started the company, we didn't have the trimmer and all that stuff. And he's like, I got you. And Nas is still a supporter even after we sold the company, right? Like I'll forever be loyal to that man. Like, he is a good brother.
Yeah, all the way. And I mean, he's another testament of going into the venture capitalism and us seeing more of us in that that realm and being invested. But like I said, it seems like a lot of it comes down to being connected. You got to know the right people, essentially, to even get into it.
Yep. Well, Nas is, I think, he's unique and singular because like he cares about, of course, making money as he should. But he's like, here's a brother doing what I'm doing, what I've always wanted to do, and he's doing it the right way, right? So he's become like a friend. It's crazy for me to say, too, that like, wow, like Nas is in my phone, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy, and I'm very, very thankful for everything that he's done. But he cares in a way that I wouldn't say all investors would.
Right.
Yeah.
So you get to this point where you've got Bevel, you've got the name, you've got Nas, you've got investment, you get it up and going. All right, what were some of the challenges? Because it seems like, and maybe it's just the way I see it, like on TV and in pop culture, but it seems like it grew really fast. Yeah. Like before I know, it's like I heard about Bevel, then I saw it everywhere. I saw it in Target, I saw it in magazines, and then next thing I know, I saw an article that it was sold to Procter & Gamble acquires it. So I'm like, man, that was really fast. So was it one of those things? I assume maybe the demand was just so high that maybe it was just hard to keep up, and you needed a bigger vehicle to get it out there.
I think, funny enough, like we were about to run out of money.
You're gonna run out of money?
Yeah, we. And the funny thing is, like, we were being successful. Like, we were growing every year, that sort of thing. But so we raised $39 million. Right.
Is this in the beginning or at what point?
Over time, right?
Over time.
Before we sold, we've been around for close to 6 years.
Okay.
So my very first round of funding was like 2.5. Then I did 6 to 7. Then I did like 24, 25, something like that. So we got to the point, probably beginning of last year, we were growing, but then kind of demand from venture capitalists to invest in like e-commerce companies went away. Right. So as an entrepreneur, you got to be subject to the whims of your ability to raise money. Ben also would tell me there's only 2 reasons companies fail. Number 1, you give up. 2, you run out of money. Right. No company has failed for any other reasons. Like you can talk about culture and all that stuff. That's people giving up. Right. If you can't raise the money, then you got to figure something else out. So for us, like we were growing the business. Demand was picking up. We were in retail, all that stuff. But you got to buy product, right? Then you got to market the product. You got to sell it, that sort of thing, right? And venture capital dried up. So I was like, this mission, the game we're playing is way too important, right? Far too important to lose.
Right.
And I was like, I started this company to serve. I started to serve us, right? And I want this company to be around 100, 150 years from now. Who else has done it, right? Like Procter & Gamble is the only company in our space that has done it. And the thing I tell a lot of people, why do we sell the company? Why don't you stay black owned? And all that stuff.
Yeah.
Procter & Gamble serves 5 billion people on the planet. They have $2 billion in research and development, right? I'm the first black CEO in Procter & Gamble history, right? Like our ability to touch the majority of the world with the reason why we started this in the first place is now accelerated as a result. And I no longer have to worry about raising money from venture capitalists.
Right.
You know, the thing that like is really funny about a lot of entrepreneurs, they think that like raising money is like this kind of sign of success. You know, I a little bit of a joke, and I'm a bit facetious when I say it, but like it's actually really true. Every problem that I've ever had has been the result of my raising money. I wish I didn't raise a dime. You know, you raise money, you got to return it. You got to return it on a timetable that might not be commensurate with the timetable that you want to return it on, right? Which kind of creates all this kind of interesting tension. Like, how fast do you grow? Why? Right? Do you launch products faster than they need to be, right? So the lesson that I learned, and the thing I teach a lot of entrepreneurs is like, yeah, you want to raise money, but for what? You know? And a lot of people don't have the answer to that question.
Yeah.
So anyway, to no longer have to worry about that is like a freeing thing for me.
Yeah.
So, you know, we get to have our impact with billions of people now, which if we wanted to do that without P&G's help, I would have had to wait a long time. I would have had to raise a lot more money, and I wouldn't have had any equity in my business.
Got you. Because a lot of people don't understand what it means when you say sell, especially in our community. When we see acquire or sell, we're thinking you're no longer involved in it, that you have nothing to do with Bevel. Like it's Procter & Gamble is running it. So when you sold, how does that work to sell? But you're still, again, you're saying you're still the CEO. You're still making the decisions.
Acquisitions have two parts. It's financial and non-financial. Right? The financial stuff was easy. Like that's kind of, you have evaluation, they believe what the thing could be worth, which they thought it was good, like opportunity and whatever.
Okay.
The non-financial stuff is the more important thing for me because, you know, when people think about companies that have sold, it's like, all right, the founder leaves, gets his bag, right, doesn't care, all that stuff. I was like, I started this for a different reason. So first, we got to operate independently. And we operate independently enough that like we can't even use their health insurance. Like we got to use our own health insurance. You know what I'm saying? Like I wanted to create that kind of infrastructure, but we still get to leverage their infrastructure, right? So I'll give you a perfect example. In like top of the year, we're going to launch like 15 products, right? We started in March, right? Our ability to do that, like we would have had to take 2 years to do that before. Now we're going to do that in like 7 months. You know what I'm saying? So like we're taking advantage of the things they have. My access to like the CEO of Procter & Gamble. You know, we have numerous conversations all the time, right? So like my ability to learn and kind of reach these 5 billion people faster is there. So there's a non-financial negotiation that happens, which takes the majority of the time. And the thing that was important for me was not only the brand being protected, so he can actually realize his vision to be around 150 years, but the people, right? You know, I told them when we first started chats, this was like September. They were like, all right, so where do you want the company? I was like, Atlanta. They were like, great.
It was just that simple.
It took 45 seconds.
You said, I'm moving to Atlanta. And I mean, it's cost effective too, so it probably made a lot of sense.
I mean, but at the end of the day, I think they would have respected wherever I thought like made sense. If I wanted to stay in California, they would have done that too, right? There's a whole bunch of reasons why Atlanta made a lot of sense for us, but they fulfilled their side of the bargain, right? And I appreciate that because it's not the case for a lot of other companies. They get acquired by companies like that. Right.
So to your point, you're kind of running it independently still, you know, but it's, as you said, because you said before, you said partnership. You guys have that.
Yeah, so Walker Company is still a company, right? It's a separate entity. It's still a company. I'm running it with my people, right? And we get, again, access to all of the infrastructure, Procter & Gamble, right? Wow. Which is amazing, right? And allows us to accelerate that vision.
That's awesome,
yeah,
Tristan.
Cool.
I mean, that's you. Would you have a hell of a lawyer or something? Or you just got
good lawyers.
I was gonna say you had to have an incredible lawyer to be able, because like you said, a lot of companies that get acquired, and a lot of times companies get acquired to get shut down. You know, the companies just trying to get the competition out the way, and so it's just good to see that you're still very much so at the helm of it, and I think that's important for people to know.
Yeah, well, we spoke to everybody last year. Everybody came. They knocked on our door. It was important. We didn't have to sell the company. Like if I wanted to go, like it would still survive. It just wouldn't accelerate as quickly until we raised money to do it, that sort of thing. But it would have been around, right? Because I would have built the company in that way. But I wanted to make sure if we were to ever sell the company, do that sort of thing, we were values aligned. Yeah. And we started chats in September, closed December 12th. Like, it's quick. Like, it was just, it made sense. You know, the very first articles written about us was like Tristan Walker's building a Procter & Gamble for people of color. Wow. And it's like a full circle blessing for us.
That's incredible.
Yeah. As you were building the company in the beginning, how did you, or what qualities did you look for in some of the early employees?
That's a good question.
And folks that you were hiring?
Yeah. I needed folks that wanted to work. I mean that like literally, because here I am starting a company in Silicon Valley, focused on the needs of people of color, right? Technology, but also kind of products, right? I mean, to Silicon Valley engineers and all that stuff, it's not like the first thing they're going to jump at, right? They're getting all these offers from Facebook and Twitter and all this stuff. So first, you got to have people who want it. You know what I'm saying? Like people who get it, you know, aren't subject to the kind of big salary check and all that stuff, right? So first and foremost, like who's going to help me actually just get to the first step? Yeah. Now in that, the challenge is you're not going to get the highest quality talent that you can get, right? But frankly, you got to get started, right? And that's what I did. Before I started the company though, I made sure like I wrote out what my personal values were. Those values became the company's values. There's 6. And I made sure that I was hiring for those, right? So, you know, we have courage, inspiration, respect, judgment, wellness, loyalty. I would ask questions, interviews, reviews, all that stuff to ensure that like it's matched and everybody shares those same values. And once you have the values alignment, then you're just managing, right? For me, it's harder if our values aren't aligned and I'm managing, right? Then I just don't have, there's no time in the day for that. So fortunately, even if like, let's say, you know, we ended up getting a really, really great talent that like also cared about the mission, even if I didn't have that in the very beginning, like we were values aligned. And that's when we did our best work, you know? Like people got it, they understood it. And this kind of, light switch that went on from what Bevel was to what it became was really a culmination of our like being very serious about that in the very beginning. So we found folks that other companies might not be willing to kind of consider strongly because their values spoke differently than those other companies were reporting. Make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And then from there, you were able to find better and better people, I guess, along the way as the company grew.
Well, we were able to find more people.
More people.
Which, you know, like more people, more problems too. But, you know, I think throughout that process, I also learned how to be a CEO. Yeah. It was my first time doing it. I was very ineffective. I was very naive. But I think I became pretty good at it. It just took me a while. I'm still learning. You know, we've hired a lot of people. We've terminated a lot of people. We've had layoffs. We've had lawsuits. We've had peaks. We've had troughs. We went through everything as a company. Entrepreneurship is hard, man. Like it is the worst job. Being a CEO is the worst job in the world, but it's the most rewarding. I can't see myself doing anything else, you know, and that is the truth of the matter. I didn't realize that in the beginning. I came to realize that in the end, though.
What are some of the kind of, if you could pinpoint like a really big lesson or a good lesson you learned as a CEO, like the difference between CEO Tristan in the early days and CEO Tristan today, growth-wise? What are some of the things you do differently that you didn't, you know, that was different from how you started?
So there's probably 2 things, and this is some bit of feedback I give to people who come to me and ask me for advice. Who they say, "Oh, I want to start a company," and they're like, "Tristan, like, what do I have to do to like start a company?" And I was like, "Great, you want to be a founder, but do you want to be a CEO?" And like, they don't ever have an immediate question. Like, there's this difference between being a founder and a CEO. Now, a CEO, you got to hire, you got to fire, you got to raise money, you got to do all the stuff. Like, you have responsibilities, right? So the first thing is like learning what that means. You learn what that means, you have to do that first termination. You know, like, you learn what that means very quickly. The second thing, I learned this last year because it's a very, very tough year. Like, we couldn't raise the money, had layoff, right? We ended up in a wonderful position, but like, you know, I got to a point where probably sometime in August, I got shingles. You know what shingles are?
Shingles. My friend got shingles when she was under a lot of stress.
I had no idea what those were.
It sounds like something for old people. That was the crazy thing.
Right?
She was like,
Right?
This is when they told her she had shingles. She's like, I'm
That's exactly
in
right.
my 20s.
Yeah, so it's crazy not even knowing what it was. And the doctor was like, have you ever had chicken pox before? I was like, yeah. And he's like, the only other reason is stress. And that was the first time I realized. I was like, my body is telling me something. My mind different than my mind was. And I was like, I got to figure this out. So, you know, you get executive coaches, therapists, and all that stuff. So the second learning that I had, which was, I kind of sustained me throughout from when I started to the end, but like it's really reinforced with me now, is you got to make decisions in line with the values that you have. Like as a CEO, you got to make a million decisions a minute. You got to make high quality decisions at a high velocity, right? And it's hard to manage, especially as a sole founder, right? Like, so, you know, the thing that I learned, I work with this executive coach who's like this human performance sports psychologist guy. I come to him with the toughest questions, right? Like, oh, I have to deal with this employee, or I have to kind of deal with this problem. Like, what should I do? And he's like, what do your values tell you to do? Right? And like those 6 that I gave you earlier, it's like, you know, am I being courageous, inspiring, blah, blah, blah. You come up with the question or the answer in 15 seconds. And it's interesting, like once you understand your values, how you just move different. You know, that's personally and professionally. So the thing I tell all CEOs, the only way to be sane in this whole thing, first you got to know who you are. Because you got to know what you're willing to accept and not accept. Right? And the only way you can do that is knowing what your values are.
Yeah, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
Tristan, I appreciate you for sharing your story, and man, I know I've learned a lot. I don't know about you, Zeb. You should definitely have learned a lot.
I did.
And just appreciate you for it. Again, you know, one of the things we talk a lot about, especially from a business standpoint, and what we want to do is reaching the underserved consumer base. I think that's the one thing as a people that we have the ability to do. We can, if we focus in on each other, we're serving an underserved area, whether you stay hyper local or you focus on, this is my niche. You really, like you found that niche audience, which was you found all these, there are millions of people just like you around the world. You identified a problem, you served it, and then you've been able to grow, like you said, your legacy now with Walker and Company. But I think there is something to be said. I think sometimes we're looking for these big hits, like we want this big product, or we want this big company to see us and buy us and all this other stuff, that we can sometimes forget about that niche audience, that underserved audience that needs you to cater to them or bring something to them.
That's right.
And that's what then brought Procter and Gamble your way, is because they can't serve that. And if they got $1 billion budget, why not? Like, that's adding to their bottom line ultimately.
Yeah, so. The thing that I think is, you know, if there's anything that I kind of leave you, the audience, with, is too many people try to stray away from the thing that they're uniquely qualified to do, right?
Facts.
You know, your experience is unique to you. Like, I tell people, you might find an idea around using toilet paper in a way that, like, but people are embarrassed to do it. And I'm like, well, somebody invented toilet paper, and look, it's like, you know, like that family legacy is serious right now. Like, you got to embrace your difference. And while like I was a niche of one, I wasn't. Right? I wasn't, because people have the same shaving problems. Then when I think about my blackness, like ethnicity, folks of color, it's actually not niche. It's like the majority of the world. You know what I'm saying? So you open your aperture a little bit, but it has to start with like, what's the one thing that you know better than everybody else on the planet? And the only way you come to that conclusion is just recollecting on your own experience. And that's where you realize you don't, like, people come in trying to start $1 billion company. You might need to start a $10 company that becomes $1 billion company. You know?
That's the way to go. Well, Tristan, Zeb, did you have any other questions too before we wrap up?
I did have one about marketing, because when you talk about, you know, after you all started, I'm sure there were other competitors or people who kind of saw what you were doing and then wanted to enter into the space. So like, how did you think about marketing as a CEO in regards to making sure that, and then especially with social media as well, like what was some of like the ways that you thought about marketing?
So, you know, it's easy when I'm solving my own problems. It's also easy when people have access to me, right? Because I'm held accountable to excellence in product development, customer service, right? Anyone has a problem, I'm tweeting them, I'm on Instagram, all that stuff. also, when I knew what my values are, being consistent personally, professionally, right? When people meet me in person, they're like, oh, it's the same dude like I saw on this or whatever, right? So this whole idea of authenticity, like if you're authentic to the thing you're trying to sell, like you're not marketing, you're just being yourself, right? And like that, it's a noisy world, right? With a lot of BS and a lot of people who don't know what they're talking about. It's almost refreshing when you have someone who's like really authentic about the things that they care about and they know the things they don't, right? When you find those people, you kind of want to kind of latch on and support. And I think all of Walker & Company's success, and the reason you said we haven't had competition, because in order for us to have competition, you got to have somebody who has that same authentic story. But they won't, because I'm the only person in the world who has my story. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not going to shy away from that. Everything I share with you today is the same thing I share with everybody else. Like my story is consistent because it's my own. I think the quicker everybody realizes that like their own story is unique and there's power in it, like you're not marketing, you're just being yourself, and people will gravitate to it.
Now Zeppelin's also an avid reader. He loves books. I tell him if he could, he would live in a library and just read all day.
That's right.
You read too?
I read 4 hours a day.
Come on.
4 hours a day. Okay, he's a reader. He's a reader. Okay, then. Well, if that's the case, so you gave us one book to read earlier. Are there any other books for like upcoming, not just entrepreneurs, but like you said, managers? Like as a CEO, you're managing. So CEOs, CFOs, creative directors, future, again, presidents of programming, or all these executive positions, because there's all kinds of positions you can be within a company to lead. What book would you recommend as far as leadership, management, and then also just from a personal level too? Like,
so I'm probably going to say something that's a bit counterintuitive. So I collect a lot of books. I'm like building a library in my house of like old, antique, first edition stuff. Primarily because, until I got through college, like I was doing stuff for the tests. I was like valedictorian and all that stuff. I never consumed the content that I read, right? Now I'm in a position where like, I just have time. I get to relearn again. And I have, 2 sons that I want to really understand the purpose of values, right? And kind of purport my values to them and be more precise around like what my definition is. So I have like all these texts of like Roman classics, like Greek classics, Shakespeare stuff, like African American stuff, like all like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books. So the first thing like I always give an answer to, because people expect me to give like business books and stuff like that. I don't read business books. Like I've already done that stuff before. The thing I've learned about being a good manager, the thing I learned about being a good person, right, is to understand how to be a good person, right? Like we're in the people business, right? So the stuff that I'm reading are the stuff that I enjoy around like defining what virtue means. You know what I'm saying? Like, of course you have like the Bible and all that, but then you have like, the old Roman classics, right? Where like folks had to spend all day thinking about this stuff. You know what I'm saying? There are books that like, I love, right? Like Autobiography of Malcolm X, right? Like this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful story of a man who led a movement that was like so critical and important, self-taught in a lot of ways. Like I love that stuff. The lesson that I give people is just like read the things that, number one, you enjoy, because if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to read it, right? Like, so that's number one. That's set me out on my journey. But 2, read as much as you can around being a good person. Because a lot of these business authors have never run a business, right? They're like marketing professors, right?
With a suit on on the cover.
Yeah, and you don't realize that, right? Until you have to get in the game, right? And it's like, man, like I get what they were trying to say and I understand the research, but, when I'm in a room and you tell me that, you're going through an issue with family, a divorce, a death in the family, what book helps me understand how to have this conversation? And these are things that happen when you don't expect, and they happen more often than you realize. So I try and surround my reading and the people that I'm around with people who can actually help me understand like what my values mean for myself and what virtue means overall. And as a result of my reading so much and doing that, like now I can speak to people on their level.
Absolutely. You know what do you see next for Walker and Company?
Yeah.
And where are you going? What's the next level, next step?
Of course. So we have top of the year, we're going to launch upwards of 15 products, right? So we're going to be in a whole bunch of new categories, that sort of thing, still focused on solving problems for our people. That will forever be what we do.
Love it.
Form is going to kind of have its brand refresh, which I'm pretty excited about too. So we got a lot of work there.
Okay.
And we're hiring. I mean, the wonderful thing is now we're in Atlanta. And I've been there for about 4 months. Nice. It's the best decision I made.
Yeah,
personally,
you love it?
Professionally, personally, I love Atlanta. I think Atlanta is the most important city in the country right now in terms of kind of what it's doing for entrepreneurship in general, but especially Black entrepreneurship.
Okay.
You know, cost of living, what the culture's doing, kind of economic growth, diversity. I feel like what's happening in Atlanta right now, I get the same feeling I had back in 2008 when I went to Silicon Valley, but in every industry. Wow. That is, it's palpable. Like I've never felt this way about anywhere that I've been. And the fact that we get to participate and learn, I think is pretty special. So much of the next year or two is just learning Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
Right. And, you know, we finally, this past week, now my full team is finally onboarded in Atlanta. They moved out. So now it's like full steam ahead. We're gonna get involved.
Would you look to acquire other, beauty companies, especially with regards to Form? I see there's so many, like I'll see like estheticians or a lot of people who have great products.
Of course.
Would you be looking to acquire any businesses
if it makes sense?
As well?
I mean, our number one focus is to solve problems for Black people.
Okay. Period.
And there are a lot of companies that make things for Black people. But there are a few that solve problems for Black people.
Absolutely.
Right? So if there are kind of health, beauty, products, grooming companies that solve like acute problems for us, like I'm very interested in that stuff, right? Because again, that helps us accelerate our kind of vision to serve. So anything, if you guys have ideas, hit us up. Right? If you want to come work with us to do it, hit us up.
Right.
But that's the wonderful thing about kind of partnering with like a Procter & Gamble. We have resources to contribute.
Awesome.
So we're going to be pretty aggressive about that now.
Gotcha. How can people keep up with you or follow you on your journey?
Yeah, appreciate it. So, for people who want to learn more about Bevel, it's getbevel.com, formbeauty.com, walkerandcompany.com, or folks can just follow me and I'll share all those links at Tristan Walker on any social network.
Well, Tristan, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for sharing, just being open, sharing the knowledge. Tristan Walker, y'all, Walker and Company.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Boom. That was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.